welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight in today with something that really touches all of us, I think, often without us quite realizing it. It's the hidden danger, the risk of actually doing nothing.
Right. We were listening to this really interesting chat between Mike and Emma on the EDP English Dialogue podcast.
Yeah, EDP English Dialogue podcast. And they really nailed some key points about why inaction, just not moving forward, can be surprisingly risky.
Exactly. That's what we want to explore today. We hear all the time, take action, be proactive.
Sure.
But what about the other side? What happens when we just don't, when we hold back?
That's the core of this deep dive, isn't it? Trying to get under the skin of why choosing to do nothing might actually be the more perilous path sometimes.
Precisely. More dangerous than maybe taking a step and stumbling a bit.
Okay, so let's maybe nail down what we mean by doing nothing. Because it's not just like sitting perfectly still, is it?
No, not at all. That's what Mike and Emma were getting at. It's often more subtle.
How did they describe it?
Well, it's less about physical inactivity and more about not taking those purposeful steps.
Yeah.
Towards goals or when facing a challenge.
So like procrastinating on big decisions.
Yeah, that's a big one. Or avoiding changes, you probably need to make.
Or just staying comfy. Staying where you are because it's easy, not really pushing yourself.
Exactly. Staying in the comfort zone without actively looking for growth or, dealing with stuff that needs dealing with.
Right. That definitely rings true. We all know that feeling, putting off something tricky. So if that becomes a pattern, this inaction, what are the risks? What did Mike and Emma see as the fallout?
Well, one of the biggest things they flagged was missed opportunities. Just chances slipping away.
Okay.
Life doesn't really stand still, does it? Opportunities pop up, but often they have a shelf life.
Right.
So if you hesitate, if you don't act, maybe not applying for that job or not learning that skill or putting a personal goal on the back burner forever, gone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Mike made a good point. They don't usually hang around waiting for you. It makes you think of that classic regret, looking back and thinking, if only I'd just done it.
Exactly that.
Mike and Emma mentioned careers and education specifically. Why is inaction maybe particularly damaging there?
Well, think about it. In your career or when you're learning, progress usually depends on you taking initiative, right?
True.
If you don't go for that promotion, chances are someone else will. If you don't sign up for that course, that could boost your skills. Well, you might just get left behind while others move forward.
Stagnation.
Yeah, and Emma really highlighted the potential for that deep, lasting regret. Looking back later and realizing what you could have achieved, what experiences you missed out on, just because you didn't take the step.
And it's not always those huge life-changing moments either, is it? They talked about how it can creep into just everyday well-being, too.
Absolutely. Inaction can seep into personal life in quieter ways.
Like what?
Maybe avoiding difficult but necessary conversations in relationships. Or neglecting your health, physical or mental.
Putting off that doctor's appointment.
Right. Or always saying someday to hobbies or passions that could actually bring you joy. These small instances of doing nothing, they add up.
And lead to this general feeling of dissatisfaction.
Exactly. Emma mentioned that kind of deep-seated regret that's hard to shake off later.
So you get stuck.
Yeah.
Trapped almost. Mike and Emma use that word stagnation, which feels very accurate.
It really does capture it. When you constantly avoid action, you just stay put. You don't evolve. You don't improve.
And that lack of movement, what does it do to you?
It can really breed this sense of unfulfillment,
Yeah.
a lack of purpose even. Makes it hard to find meaning day to day.
Which inevitably affects your mental state.
For sure. They pointed out the direct link to negative impacts on mental and emotional well-being. Feeling listless, dissatisfied.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Treading water isn't exactly inspiring.
Yeah.
But they also flipped it, didn't they? They talked about the power in acting, how growth itself needs that push.
Yes, exactly. Growth needs movement. It needs effort.
Like learning a new skill.
Perfect example. Or building a new habit. Working towards a goal you care about. All these things require you to do something. To invest time, energy.
And if you don't...
You risk just getting complacent.
Yeah.
That initial drive, that motivation, it can just fade away.
No, something I found really interesting that Mike and Emma discussed was the fear of regret. It feels backwards because often we don't act because we're scared of making the wrong choice, right?
We worry about messing up.
But they turn that idea on its head.
They really did.
Yeah.
And it's such a crucial point. We get so focused on the potential downside of a mistake. But we often underestimate the regret that comes from not deciding. from not acting at all.
That what if again.
Exactly. As Mike said, that regret of inaction can stick with you for a very, very long time. It's a constant echo of what might have been.
And even if you do act and maybe it doesn't go perfectly, there's still value there. Emma mentioned that.
Absolutely. Even failure or what looks like failure isn't wasted because you almost always learn something valuable. You gain experience. It shapes you, makes you better equipped for next time.
Right.
Emma's point was that it's usually far better to have tried, learned, and maybe adjusted course than to just sit there forever wondering.
Okay, so this brings us back to our internal state, our mental health. Mike and Emma connected long-term inaction to some pretty tough feelings.
They did. They talked about how constantly avoiding things can foster feelings of helplessness. It can even contribute to depression.
Wow. But the flip side? Taking action.
That has a really positive impact. Even small steps, it boosts your confidence.
Gives you a sense of control.
Exactly, a sense of agency over your life. And Emma mentioned how engaging with challenges, working on solutions, actually reduces anxiety.
That makes sense. You feel like you're doing something about it.
Right, you get that sense of accomplishment, that purpose, which is so good for overall mental well-being.
So, given all these potential downsides, missed opportunities, stagnation, regret, negative mental health impacts, why is inaction still so common? Why do we get stuck?
The million-dollar question.
Mike and Emma went into some of the psychology behind it, didn't they?
Yes, several key drivers. Fear of failure is a huge one, just massive.
The worry that you'll try and fall flat on your face.
Exactly. That anxiety can be so strong it just freezes you. Inaction feels safer, less threatening.
Where does that come from?
Mike suggested it often stems from past experiences maybe, or societal messages that wrongly equate failure with being inadequate.
When really it's just part of learning.
It's essential to learning, often.
Okay, fear of failure.
What else? The comfort zone. The lure of the familiar.
Yes, the cozy blanket of predictability.
Right. Change feels uncertain, maybe scary. So we naturally lean towards what feels safe and known.
But there's a cost to that comfort.
A big cost. As Emma pointed out, that comfort often means missing out on growth, on new experiences. You trade potential for security.
So stepping out takes courage.
It does. But the rewards, discovering new things about yourself, about the world, they usually outweigh that temporary discomfort.
And sometimes it isn't even fear, is it? Sometimes it's just not knowing where to start, lack of direction.
That's another really important point they raised. If you don't have clear goals or a strong sense of purpose, it's easy to just drift.
Taking action feels pointless if you don't know where you're headed.
Precisely. That lack of motivation or a clear vision makes it hard to summon the energy.
So what's the answer there?
Mike emphasized having some kind of roadmap, even a rough one, breaking down big ambitions into smaller, manageable steps. That gives you direction, helps you build momentum without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Okay, so if someone listening is thinking, yeah, that sounds like me, I'm stuck in inaction, what can they actually do? Mike and Emma gave some practical strategies, right?
They did, yes.
Yeah.
Very concrete things. One key recommendation was setting SMART goals.
Classic. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
Exactly. It's classic for a reason. It really works. It forces you to turn vague ideas into actual plans.
Makes it less daunting.
Much less. As Emma explained, it gives you clarity, structure, makes it easier to track your progress, which keeps you motivated. And it breaks down those huge, scary tasks into bite-sized pieces.
SMART goals. Definitely a good starting point. What else did they suggest for breaking that inertia?
Building a support system.
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with people who actually encourage you.
Friends, family, mentors.
Yeah, people who lift you up. It makes a huge difference for motivation, for accountability, too.
How so?
Well, as Mike said, they can offer different perspectives when you're stuck, share their own struggles maybe, and just cheer you on, help you stay committed when things get tough.
Having that backup sounds crucial, and Emma brought up something else, something more internal, self-compassion.
Yes, so important, being kind to yourself.
Especially when you slip up.
Absolutely. When you have setbacks or things don't go perfectly, which they often won't, treating yourself with understanding, not beating yourself up, is key.
Why is that so vital?
Because, as Emma stressed, it keeps you going. It prevents discouragement from derailing you completely. Everyone messes up. Self-compassion builds resilience. It lets you learn and keep moving forward with a better mindset.
Good reminder. Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
They also mentioned mindfulness and reflection. How do those fit in?
Well, taking time to actually reflect on your goals, where you're at, What's tripping you up gives you valuable insights, helps you stay aligned with what you actually want.
And mindfulness, being present.
Mike explained how that helps reduce anxiety about the future or regrets about the past. It sharpens your focus, makes it easier to be here now and actually take that next step instead of getting lost in your head.
So being more intentional, more present in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And one last thing they highlighted, celebrating the small wins.
Yes, don't underestimate this one. Acknowledging and rewarding your progress, no matter how small it seems, is a powerful motivator.
Gives you a little boost.
A big boost sometimes, it reinforces the positive action, gives you that feeling of achievement, reminds you that even small steps add up and move you forward.
Yeah.
Emma really drove that home. Every step counts.
Okay, so pulling this all together then. The big message from Mike and Emma and from our chat here, it really seems to be that the real risk, the greater danger, isn't in acting and maybe making a mistake.
Right.
It's in staying still. It's the stagnation, the missed chances that come from doing nothing.
Precisely. It's about understanding that proactive engagement, even when it feels hard or scary, is just necessary for growth, for fulfillment, for handling whatever life throws at you.
So by getting wise to the downsides of inaction and maybe using some of those strategies they talked about.
We can build more purposeful lives.
Yeah.
Embrace change, face the fears, commit to ongoing growth.
And it's never too late to start, right? That came through strongly.
Absolutely. Mike and Emma were clear on that. It's never too late. Even the tiniest step is a start. And those small steps, done consistently, they really do add up over time. They can lead to huge changes down the line.
It takes patience, though. Persistence.
Definitely. It's a journey, not a magic switch. But the rewards, growth, achievement, that deep personal satisfaction make it absolutely worth the effort. Remember to be kind to yourself along the way.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the main takeaway feels pretty clear. Choosing action, despite the unknowns, is generally a far less risky proposition than choosing inaction.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. Take a moment to think. Is there one specific area in your life right now where you might be, perhaps unintentionally, choosing to do nothing?
Mm-hmm.
What could be the potential long-term costs if that continues? And maybe more importantly, what's just one small, manageable step you could take, maybe even today, to start shifting things in that area? Just one small step to initiate some positive change.